On. Sri Ganesh, what was your impression of these three different strands coming together during the conference?
Uh, Very interesting for me personally because I don't think of these aspects a lot in my direct line of work. So it's always interesting to find out the other perspectives, etc. What is interesting about this, and that I think what is the useful aspect of this conference, is the fact that it creates a forum for different disciplines to talk to each other from and get the different perspectives. What I'd like to see more of is actually that interaction between markets people and people working on climate issues, etc. Because there are differences of opinion on how things should be done. There are differences of opinion of what is good and what is not good in terms of development. And I think the answer lies in more interaction between these different disciplines because markets, for example, in one area which I work in relation to livelihoods, uh, for in my worldview, that is the first and primary most important things for livelihood of poorer stakeholders, poorer grassroots level participants in our economy. But then, how do we incorporate these, kind of larger issues of ecology, of climate change aspects, which are not just about, in the immediate term, but more, longitudinal, as well as, encompasses time and space aspects, which we do not think of when we talk about livelihoods. But there's an element of cost, which is, I think was discussed and which is interesting to listen to. But I think there needs to be cost of these, adaptation strategies. Who pays for that? What are equitable forms of, access as well as, costing for use of resources? Because at the end of the day, for the poor communities, what they are mostly concerned about is their livelihood. How do I feed my family? How do I make them better? And I don't know if that's that worldview of that view of sort of the longer term strategies, how much of climate change adaptation strategies, how those get incorporated into a poor man's livelihood.
How would you bring in the experiences and insights of Learnasia, which has been studying at the bottom of the economic pyramid?
What we're studying at the bottom of the economic pyramid is actually use and access to ICTs. What do they use it for? How are they mediating their various functional needs through the use of these different technologies? We could bring some insights, for example, on what are their levels of use, comfort levels of use of different technologies. If we talk like mobile phones, for example, we can say that let's say a survey that we done in 2008 showed to us that, for example, 52% of those at the bottom of the pyramid in Sri Lanka are more comfortable using SMS, for example, as a specific medium, rather as opposed to, let's say, 32% of the BOP in India. This reveals certain sort of preferences with regards to the kind of technologies, which kind of can indicate potential opportunities for interventions on what technologies are appropriate in different local contexts, and which is also has a bearing on when you look at the end of the day, for example, what are most people comfortable with, and that is voice. But there are certain cost implications with regards to voice, which may, which are less when you talk about SMS. So when you kind of debate these, what is appropriate, what is not appropriate in each of the given contexts, our data can give some very useful insights about, what are the appropriate technologies. Because whenever we talk about use of technologies, we have to talk about what is appropriate in a sort of local context, and that's what our data gives some insights into.
During the ICT session at the conference, there was a bit of ICT bashing.
Hmm.
What was your take on that?
Um, I think, I mean, I don't want to negate some of the opposing views about the use of ICTs. I think we need to recognize the fact that sometimes technology has taken precedence over actually information, or given a more sort of understanding that what is appropriate. But that's why we also have these terms in the ICT field of ICT 2.0, which is exactly to incorporate those sort of shortcomings in the first phase of that approach, which was, and in the second phase, what people try to underscore is the fact that two-way information flows, understanding what is needed. These are the sort of principles that have emerged from that discourse, saying that these are the things that are important to be considered before you decide on what technology is used. So it's not like that we have been averse to these sort of criticism. We are incorporating those and addressing those in the sort of our research and our actions.
It seemed to me like some development practitioners are still trapped in the connectivity debate, and we have moved on. The world has moved on. Was that your impression?
I do think that sort of when one talks about connectivity, there's always sort of a value-based judgment on what a person thinks is the most appropriate technology. But it's not, the answer is not as simple as that. We may also talk about, for example, what is appropriate for a poor person, etc., to utilize, but that has to be sort of mediated with the fact that what is in existence. So there is a balance of these conflicting forces with regards to what is available, how can, and understanding what is the potential sort of how far can the existing technology be utilized, and understanding the limitations, but not coming up with new ideas of that this doesn't solve this problem or that problem. Important, but then we deal with limitations of what is in existence, and that's what we need to kind of address, is how do we, given what is in existence, how do we make the best use of those channels.
So how would you sum up the challenge of living in a world that is connected and on a planet that is warming up? How do we deal with these challenges?
I think this one particular challenge that I actually like to address, and I think someone might have brought that up already, is the fact that there is a lot of information, that we are in a more connected space where there is a sort of access to information at a large scale. Yes, I agree that not everybody has the access to all that information, but in general there's a large amounts of information. But at the end of the day, what it's creating is the need for sort of these mediators, these sort of filters that sort of how do we actually, without being overloaded with information, what is appropriate for me. And there's a sort of research need in that particular area to kind of bridge that gap between all the information that is available, to kind of sort of filter that to the exact information that is needed by the poor. And this is exactly where the space for the private sector is, because that is, I think, it's a service that's has value, and something that should be paid for by whoever uses it, and that creates the right incentives to kind of get the targeted information that is needed by a sort of a customer at the bottom of the pyramid in this case.
Thank you.